I actually have Borja Mayoral as my number two. And it was between him and Odriozola for number two for me. I went with Borja Mayoral because he when he came to La Liga after a really disappointing stint at Roma where Jose Mourinho just didn't play him at all after he had a great season last season. He came to La Liga and immediately picked it up right away. First in the entire league in goals per shot on target, and he wasn't like this player who was highly involved and just did a bunch of offensive things because of the way Getafe play. But I thought it was even more impressive the fact that he actually, despite not having the ball much and despite not having many chances, he scored in those moments he had. So he was pretty clinical. So that's why I have him as number two. Also, I just was happy for him. It was a nice redemption arc after not playing at all in the first half of the season. I thought it was a good way to kind of salvage the season and look forward to kind of just stepping up into, a bigger role somewhere next season. What do you think?
He was my number two as well.
Nice.
And I think, if you just look at his body of work at Getafe, he hit the ground running. Like he began scoring goals, contributing with assists almost immediately. He now that I'm thinking about it, he came in at the same time as Oscar Rodriguez, and Oscar Rodriguez really didn't make an impact at Getafe during this loan spell, while Mayoral did. Unis Enal was kind of at the top of his form when Mayoral came in, but they still found a way to fit them both in there. For some reason, Quique Sanchez Flores would occasionally drop Mayoral for Sandro, which made no sense to us, but he was good every time he played. There were a lot of games where we're like, oh, is this Levante Mayoral? But even when it was Levante Mayoral, I'm saying that with quotations, he still managed to put shots on target, get involved. Like he would score goals. He'd find a way. One of the most fun games, Loanee games I watched this season was that Getafe Atletico Madrid game. I think it was like 5-3 or 5-4 or something. Mayoral scored two great goals to bring them back in it. And I think he's matured in that phase of his game. Like ever since his kind of breakout year with Roma last year, where he topped our Lone Tracker rankings last year. I feel like he's found goal. Like he's become a lot more clinical. He's been able to convert chances, and I don't know. I don't think it's out of this world for him to be the guy that just becomes the backup to Benzema next year. It's not that it's not that unreasonable. He's got the profile. He fits he's the closest thing we've had to Benzema. We've talked about that before. He's a poor man's Benzema. So he could be the one that just is the backup role. Of all the loanees, he probably has one of the better chances of actually being part of the squad next season.
It's very possible. I only wish we saw an alternate universe where Fonseca never got fired from Roma. I wonder where he'd be this season. I feel like he would be like at 15 goals or something.
Do you think he could even have been in contention to get into the Spain squad if he had two back-to-back seasons where he scored nearly 20 goals?
Yeah. If Morata can get in, me and you can probably get in. But so the Mayoral profile is interesting because, and the fact that we didn't get Mbappe changes things a little bit, but everyone's talking about, ooh man, Eden Hazard, since he got that plate removed from his ankle, different player. He's looked sharp in training. People are starting to put clips of his goals versus Liverpool when he was with Chelsea, see if he can do some damage in the Champions League final. Does he just take... Is Hazard kind of primed for that backup striker role?
I always forget about Hazard.
What's that?
I said I always forget about Hazard. Yeah, that's a fair shout, actually. At this point of his career, too, like he's probably not going to be bursting past defenders and just using his speed. So he's going to be that quick link, do his little flicks at a false nine position. He's played there many times before for Chelsea. I could see it.
The reason I also think it works, I think it's the last position he can play without being a defensive liability to the team. Can't put him on the left wing regularly because he's not better than Vinicius or Rodrigo at this stage of his career, and he doesn't defend the way those two does. You can't put him in the 10 role that sometimes Roberto Martinez puts him in Belgium because that role doesn't exist in Real Madrid. And if you did, you would have to take away one of the midfielders and your defense would fall apart. But as a link-up striker, I think that could work. Because, Benzema does do good defensive work, to be sure. Like, I'm not saying there's no defense involved at all, but certainly I think he could pull some strings in that role. I guess my only concern would be, could he be clinical enough when he gets that chance? Like, Benzema pounces on headers and he's flying in the box, his movement off the ball is great. But I actually think we could see more of Hazard in that role next season if he's going to play.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't even thought about that.
Who was number? I guess you had Mayoral number 2. So who was number 3 on your list?
So this is where I had Reguilon as number 3.
Wow,
and
you just